Today we're going to be doing a live 2-round mock draft, and it should be a really fun exercise. The most exercising I do, actually, to be honest, if you couldn't tell. But I will say, these are always really fun because they get a little bit crazy, and that is the real draft. Everybody who's an expert and a Twitter expert thinks, they know exactly what's going to happen. When in reality, any mock draft is just a simulation of potential scenarios. We really don't know what's going to happen. I tweeted this out earlier. Lance Zierlein was getting a ton of heat for his mock draft, but that's all it is a potential scenario that could play out, and it's like the butterfly effect. This happens, what if this happens? And then this would happen as a result of that. That's what a mock draft is. So it's going to get a little bit crazy. I wanted to do it live, and yes, I know I've done so much research on all these different prospects and all these different teams and what they could do, what they might be looking to do. Today, we're going in as fresh as ever. Haven't actually mapped this out in advance. And you guys have been asking for a 2-round mock draft plus for a while. Even 7 rounds have been asked about, which, come on, that's basically impossible. We don't even know. It probably between like 30 and 50 players that you don't even expect to get drafted that do. And then, of course, the guys you expect to get drafted, some of those guys fall out. The draft is crazy. So we're doing 2 rounds. It should be very fun. I am going to do trades when it seems to make sense. If there's a player that's lasting a little bit too long, we're just going to go ahead and kick this thing off at number 1. A lot of guys have been just connecting Bryce Young to Carolina recently. I still think it's going to be CJ Stroud. He's just more of a prototypical Frank Reich style of quarterback. You look at what he, brought in Indianapolis, is a 5'10", 190-pound, maybe even working up to 200-pound quarterback. The guy for Frank Reich. It seems like a little bit of a stretch, even if he is the best player in the draft. It's a tough call, but I think CJ Stroud, for me right now, I think will go number 1 overall if I had to place money on it. Things could change. Things probably will change. Maybe it'll be Bryce Young. Maybe something else happens. It is probably going to be a quarterback, though. And that leaves the Texans at number 2 to go with Bryce Young. Cardinals at number 3 is the next obvious trade down spot because, the Bears were there at number 1 forever. And the Cardinals are either, in my opinion, stick and pick and take Will Anderson or maybe even Tyree Wilson. Maybe it's Jalen Carter. But I think it's going to be Will Anderson Jr. or a trade down. I've heard that they are interested in either Tyree Wilson or Christian Gonzalez. But then I'm, seeing things like, for example, Todd McShay said that Devin Witherspoon is going to be the first corner off the board. And I could absolutely see that. I'm going to follow that up with making that true today. Not with this pick, though. As number 4, I always pencil in as a quarterback spot. It's tough not to. And a guy like Anthony Richardson is just so fun, and you hope he's able to develop. Super freak athlete, great arm, still developing his accuracy, which is not something you were super excited about with the quarterback position. But Anthony Richardson, if all goes right, will be a superstar. Now, will everything go right? Impossible to say. But it's impossible to say for anyone. Look at the hit rate on quarterbacks ever. It is a very difficult position to get right. Go back to the 2018 draft that was loaded with quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield won. Sam Darnold was the second quarterback off the board at number 3. Josh Rosen and Josh Allen were top 10 picks as well. And really only one of those guys has worked out. And it was the guy who was the least pro-ready at the time in Josh Allen. And then Lamar Jackson was actually the last pick of that first round. Now that I think about it, Ravens moved back up. So you had the 2 least ready quarterbacks that have had the most success by a wide margin in the NFL up to this point. So it's tough to take those situations and say, okay, we're going to compare any of these wildly raw prospects to, major NFL stars. Those are the outliers. How do you compare someone to the outlier? It's just statistically improbable that that's going to end up happening. But you know what? You take chances. Sometimes you get rewarded. Seahawks at number 5. It's just tough. I know with Jalen Carter stuff, he could see a potential fall. Seahawks here at 5. He's just a really, really good player at a position of need for them. Now, they did bring in a couple of interior defensive linemen. I don't think that completely takes them out of the running for one, even with bringing in Draymond Jones. I think Jalen Carter is still in play. We're going to take him here at number 5. I usually don't, but we're going to take him here at 5. Sometimes I let him fall to 6, 7, 8. maybe even 10. But I think 5 is a decent spot. He's still maybe the best player in the entire draft at the end of the day. If you can clear him from a character standpoint as an organization and say, you know what, he's everything we want and more as a player, we already know that. If you can clear him from a character standpoint, you're willing to take that risk, why not at number 5? And the Seahawks have done that before. Maybe they continue to do it. I know I've heard things that they don't want to continue to focus on those not high character players. But maybe the allure of Jalen Carter is just too much. And then you get the Lions at number 6. I've been corner here for a while, but with Tyree Wilson on the board in a very strong corner class, you could just go with an edge. And I love James Houston. He's a rotational player. Aiden Hutchinson, obviously top pick. You hope he's going to end up being a superstar for you. But you could use a true every down edge alongside Aiden Hutchinson, or on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson. And I think that could be Tyree Wilson, another great athlete. We're going to go with him in this scenario. That's a position that gets drafted high. He is a freak athlete. There is a ton of value there. And then the Raiders at 7. Tyree Wilson would have been intriguing at the very least. I think this could also be a corner spot. Tackle would be in play. Will Levis is in here. I'm going to tell you right now, this is going to be a Will Levis slides mock draft, because I really haven't done that too many times this year. I want to experiment with that possibility. And the Raiders here at 7, I like corner as a possibility for them. I really, really do. But do you pass up on a tackle? The best interior defensive linemen are off the board. I think it would come down to either tackle or corner. Then at this spot, if you're ignoring quarterback, which for the sake of this mock draft, I'm going to be doing, Jimmy Garoppolo signed to a 3-year deal, really a 2-year deal with the money, but a 3-year deal. You have him for those 3 years if you want. Let's go a different direction than usual. I'm going to go Devin Witherspoon. Yes, it could be a tackle. It could be a defensive lineman, right? Could be a quarterback, obviously, but I'm going to go Devin Witherspoon today. Corner is such a huge need for the Raiders as well. And, maybe you got that quarterback position on lock if you believe in Jimmy Garoppolo. Atlanta Falcons at 8. Probably a little bit upset that Tyree Wilson's off the board at this point. Don't necessarily need a tackle with bringing back Caleb McGarry. Could go corner. I'm not really sure this is a quarterback or receiver spot. Christian Gonzalez is particularly intriguing to me at this position. He is very, very good. Maybe the best cover corner in the class and has prototypical size and speed. I've talked myself into it. 2 corners in the top 10, just like we had last year. I think it was only the 2. Derek Stingley was 3. Sauce was 4. I don't think anyone else went top 10. Bears at number 9, though. I've been Peter Skoronski here for a while, but we're going to go ahead and think about what if Skoronski drops a little bit because of the lack of prototypical size. Even if he's the best offensive lineman in this class, maybe you want more of a true tackle. I'm going to go down and get Paris Johnson Jr. from Ohio State. That is my first tackle off the board, which is a definite possibility. And then the Eagles at 10 is really where things could get crazy. I know they're not typically a less valuable position in the first round, so not really going to consider Bijan Robinson here. But something I think about Bijan Robinson, I think he's going to go in the teens. I think he's too good not to. And somebody's going to take him. It's just a question of who. I don't think it's going to be the Eagles here. The Eagles are in a situation where they would go probably best defensive lineman or best offensive lineman somewhere in this first round. Of course, they do have that other first round pick. So you could potentially trade down, but who is a team moving up for right now? Could be for a quarterback, but the Titans would be unlikely to move up one spot. And who else would be moving up for a quarterback? Maybe the Commanders, but you doubt it. Seems like they're going to go Sam Howell, and maybe they're going into a rebuild. Who knows? Lions would probably be out with Jared Goff at this point if you're not committed to one of the top guys. If you didn't like Will Levis at 6, you probably don't take him at 18. Maybe the Bucks would move up. Certainly a quarterback needy team post Brady. You could look to potentially jump the Titans. Ooh, am I talking myself into this? That would be crazy, but craziness happens in the draft. I know with the polarizing Will Levis, that often you'd see in the comments that people would not be excited about this, but I think it would be a possibility to move up for a QB. You could do it. I'm going to get crazy, actually. I've talked myself into it. You know, I've been so chalk throughout some of these, just sticking to what I think is going to happen all the time. Let's get a little bit crazy. The Bucs are a team who still have some pieces. They need a quarterback. Will Levis maybe could be the guy. That's what you're hoping for if you make this move up. We'll just do... I want it to be accepted. We'll do a round 2 next year. I mean, you saw the Giants and Bears make a trade for Justin Fields a few years ago, and it ended up being a first that year and the next year to move up to around 10 for a QB. So it could be even more than this if something like this were to happen, but we're going to have the Bucs move up to 10. Tackle is also in play, I think, for the Bucs if they were to do this, because Skoronski's on the board, because Darnell Wright is on the board. Obviously, Anton Harrison, Broderick Jones are on the board. But in this scenario, we're going to get a little bit crazy. We're going to move up for Will Levis. I know already you hate it. I don't care. The draft is a complete unknown in a lot of ways. We're going to get a little bit crazy. Titans at 11. What do we do here? It's probably tackle or receiver. You lost Nate Davis in free agency. Receiver has continued to be a need. Robert Woods obviously gone, although you probably won't even notice that. What do we do here if we are the Tennessee Titans? Quarterback was going to be in play probably, but now that Will Levis is on the board, you're not taking Hendon Hooker at 11, even though the NFL is reportedly pretty high on him. I think we're going to go offensive line. And I think we just go Skoronski because he can potentially play guard or tackle. We're going to do Peter Skoronski at 11. Texans at 12. Bryce Young went at number 2 with their first pick. What do we do here if they're the Texans? I think they'd want to come away with a top defensive player as well. Lucas Van Ness has been a name I've connected to them just because of need and usual draft position when he's available here. I like that fit for them, but they don't necessarily have to do that. Nolan Smith is another option. Edge is certainly a need. And even though these two, as we talked about before on this channel, very different edge players, both classified under the same position. Van Ness is pure power. And Nolan Smith is a freak athlete, but so is Lucas Van Ness. But Van Ness is obviously the more power-oriented. Nolan Smith more of the speed guy, although he does have an element of power to him as well. I won't discredit that. What do we do here for the Texans? I'll tell you what. I'm going to go Jackson Smith and Jigba. Be a little bit weird here, but maybe the best receiver in the draft. Probably a slot-only player. You get to learn from Robert Woods. He's great after the catch. He's a great route runner. Has played on the outside a little bit. Maybe you can do that. I think it'd be a pretty good combo with Nico Collins. You lost Brandon Cooks, clearly. You could go with a deep threat later in the draft, but we're going to go JSN at number 12. Very good player. And even though, he didn't run the fastest, 4.52 at his pro day, pretty good time for him, might I add. Very, very shifty, and his agility times were fantastic. Jets at 13. I've been a tackle here the entire process. I really am not going to change on that. And I think I'm going to go Broderick Jones at 13. Really like Broderick Jones. Still developing, still a really young player, but he could be the best tackle out of this class when it's all said and done. Has the potential for that. Obviously, with the guys more, I would say, athletically gifted and less technically sound at this point, like Jones versus Skoronski, you got an issue for a lower floor, even with the higher ceiling. So there's some risk there, but Broderick Jones, I think, is very good. Patriots at 14. I've heard connections to Bijan Robinson here. Apparently, the Patriots are quietly looking into acquiring an elite running back in the draft. And how many of them are there? Bijan. And then there's a drop-off. I like Jahmyr Gibbs a lot. The question with him and a lot of these running backs, Devon Achane, Tyjae Spears, can they be a workhorse back that's going to take, 250 carries a year or 250 touches? Probably not, but maybe. Bijan Robinson's the true bell cow, number 1. Although, I don't know. I feel like I would find it hard to believe that they would take a running back at 14 with the running backs they already have on roster. But maybe you think Ramondre Stevenson is just a nice change of pace guy, and you'd prefer Bijan Robinson as your true number one tailback. I don't know. There's potential for that. I think I'm just going to go tackle, and I think I'm going to move Anton Harrison up. Really good athlete. This is probably the highest I've ever mocked him, but really good athlete. Great size for the position. Moves well. Potential starting tackle for the Patriots. They're in a weird spot. Packers at 15. I'm going to go Dalton Kincaid. They just need more weapons. I think Kincaid is one of those. Receivers, tough for them right now. They're historically not a team that drafts receiver in the first round. And I know you can look at tight end as well and make that same argument, right? But Kincaid just might be too good to pass on at this point. I know it's tight end. I know it's a historically less valuable position. But Dalton Kincaid is very, very good. Very good. And it's a great tight end class too. The fact that you not only have Kincaid, but Michael Mayer in the same class, and then you have Sam Laporta and Luke Musgrave and Darnell Washington and Tucker Kraft and Luke Schoonmaker and Davis Allen and Zach Kuntz. With maybe the exception of Zach Kuntz, these are all starting tight ends in the league probably. Kuntz is the wild card because he's a complete size outlier and freak athlete. He's like 6'7", 255, 260 pounds, runs a 4.5, moves really, really well. He's going to end up being a starter probably, but just wonder about the complete package. When you get a guy so tall, it's a little bit tough to be a force in the run game, but Darnell Washington is, so who knows? I mean, it is a very, very freakishly good tight end class. Maybe the best, I've ever seen. I think I can say that. Definitely possibility for that. And then the Commanders at 16. It's been a corner for me here a lot of the process. It's going to continue to be a corner. And I really do like the Deonte Banks Maryland connection with the Washington Commanders. I really like it. They play in Landover, Maryland. Deonte Banks is right there up the road. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to do Deonte Banks here at 16. I feel like that is a pretty good selection for the Commanders. Position need, great athlete, keep him local. It's a nice storyline. And then the Steelers at 17 are just so nicely set up to take Joey Porter Jr. However, I'm not going to do that. Darnell Wright's on the board. They need tackle badly, in my opinion. He's someone that is an awesome right tackle, has played left in the past as well, and it's a deep corner class. I know the allure of Joey Porter Jr. connection to Joey Porter, Steeler great during the 2000s. I totally understand that. I really, really get that. But with the run-on tackles that we've had so far, what do you want to do? Take a tackle at 17, and then what gets to you at 32? DeJuan Jones, Matthew Bergeron, Cody Mock's probably a guard. Or the corners, where you get Joey Porter Jr., but probably not. But Emmanuel Forbes, Cam Smith, Tyreek Stevenson, Julius Brents, DJ Turner, Keely Ringo is going to be there. Or probably. I know he's a great athlete. Those guys can just go high sometimes. I don't know. I think they'd probably prefer to go tackle at that point. At 18, Detroit Lions. We went with Tyree Wilson earlier. Their defense is still in rough shape, in my opinion. They need more corners. I know they went out and they got some short-term deals. Short-term deals. So you could still take one. And with Joey Porter Jr. here at 18, the Lions will not pass on him in favor of a tackle. They don't need one like the Steelers do. So Joey Porter Jr. is my pick there at 18. They need corner badly. And I'm going to say badly, and then you're like, well, Jeff Okuda, but he's going to be a free agent after next year. And then, we brought in Emmanuel Mosley. It's a one-year deal. Well, we brought in Cam Sutton. That's true. But what else? You need more corners, and you need someone on a rookie deal that you can be confident in, and that is Joey Porter Jr. on the outside. I think they do end up targeting corner pretty high with either 18 if they don't do it at 6, which they don't have to, but I think they would be well served too. Eagles now trading down from 19. And I'll tell you what. Kalijah Cansey's here. So is Lucas Van Ness, who's sliding a little bit. Kalijah Cansey is available at 19. You get a little bit of speed to go with the monster human that is Jordan Davis. I don't like that for them. Obviously, they were pretty weak on the defensive interior this past season. That's why they went out and they signed Ndamukong Suh midseason and Linval Joseph midseason. Jordan Davis is your future on that interior. Elijah Cansey now to add like the thunder to the lightning, or the lightning to the thunder. That could be very enticing for a Howie Roseman there. So you trade down, you get an extra pick or extra picks. You still could take offensive line with this pick if you wanted to do so, or receiver. I like that for them a lot. Seahawks at 20. Lucas Van Ness is just still here. Nolan Smith is here. I think it would probably be one of the two. Lucas Van Ness, to me, is the player they would more typically go after. He's got the size. He's got the length. Lucas Van Ness at 20. So a little bit of a fall on edge rushers. Van Ness is a guy I usually would have go higher, but not always. And then we get to the Chargers at 21. Now, I know the argument against this has typically been Zay Flowers isn't as big as the Chargers typically like to go at receiver. Here's the problem with that. The Chargers need more speed desperately. It's often tough to get that big, deep threat in a bigger body. You could go Quentin Johnston. Totally could. I don't really know that he's what they're looking for exactly. Yes, he's got the speed. Doesn't really win the contested balls downfield that you'd like for a big receiver. His agility testing was not great at his pro day either. So you could just opt to get like a smaller slot guy with tremendous speed to space the field. I am going to go Zay Flowers at 21. Ravens at 22. And there are connections here too. The Chargers apparently met with Zay Flowers multiple times late at the East-West Shrine Bowl week. So there's clearly some interest at least. And he's not going to be a guy, it looks like, that's going to get to the second round. So if you want him, I think you're going to have to take him at 21. Ravens at 22. It's probably a receiver for me. Corner, I think, is still in play. It's a deep corner class. I don't think you have to do that. And a guy like Daniel Jeremiah, who I deeply respect, hopefully we'll have him on the channel for a mock draft in the near future, still has Jordan Addison as his receiver 1. And I can't blame him. Jordan Addison is very, very good. And the Ravens, who need receiver, take someone that can really separate, great route runner. Seems like a no-brainer there at 22. Vikings at 23. It's receiver or corner for me. Probably one of those two. Now, what do we opt to do? Because Quentin Johnston is available. And that's intriguing. I've seen a number of different receivers sneak into the first round recently. Cedric Tillman. Jalen Hyatt's been there for a while. I've even seen on one of these recently, Jonathan Mingo get into the first round. It's very tough to differentiate these receivers. How do you value one versus the next? And I know Quentin Johnston's typically a guy you see get drafted really high, but from everyone that I talk to and watching him myself, it's not all there yet. He's fast. Doesn't really play as big as he is. Doesn't really separate the way you'd like, even though he's a bigger guy. So that's obviously going to be a little bit tougher to do. I think he's going to be a guy that falls. I talked to Brett Coleman about it. He seems to think that guys or teams are very split on Quentin Johnston. Maybe either love him or you hate him. You know, guys that I respect have him very high on their big board, and I know guys that I respect that really don't like the player at all. So it's tough. It really is very tough. Not really a hands catcher either, but is, again, a great athlete. So it's kind of like the ball of clay. Like, you can mold him potentially into a great player. He's not all there yet. So I don't really know that he ends up going so high, but we've seen teams take really good athletes and still developing receivers very high in the draft, and not too long ago. So Quentin Johnston, big question mark for me. I don't really know where he goes. But at 23, it seems like a good fit for the Vikings here. I know 3 receivers in a row, but Quentin Johnston just makes sense there at that spot. And then I have the Jags at 24. As much as I would like Brian Branch for the Giants, I don't think the Jags would be able to pass up Brian Branch at this spot. I really don't. They need nickel really badly, and that's what Brian Branch is. You can list him as a safety. He is a pure nickel corner. Play him in the overhang. Play him close to the line of scrimmage. He's going to make plays. Brian Branch is a tremendous player. And if not for positional value, he gets drafted a lot higher than this. But nickel, to me, is a really valuable position in today's league, the way you see every team run out with 3 wide receiver sets regularly. You need a good nickel corner, and Brian Branch certainly is one. So at 24, I think that he's the guy for the Jaguars. And as a Giants fan, I'd be a little bit disappointed by that. And the receivers kind of going off the board. For the Giants, I'm looking at a few positions. It's receiver, center, so we'll say interior offensive line, and corner with this pick. I think it's going to be one of those. So who do you have here at receiver? I like Josh Downs, but he is another slot receiver. You have a ton of those at this point. You don't really have a starting center. Do we want to go down for Joe Tippmann or John Michael Schmitz? We totally could, because who's going to be available at our pick in 20 spots or whatever at 57 or 30 spots, excuse me. Like it's a tough call to say if any of those guys are going to be available. Now, it's a good center class. Luke Whippler's good as well. Didn't mean to gloss over him. Chandler Zavala, if you want him at guard, very, very good. Could go higher. It's a tough call. It's a tough call for the Giants here. It really is. And I think what we're going to do is end up going with the center. I'm going to go with John Michael Schmitz. Could end up going in the first round. I know there's been a guy begging for me to mock the Giants, John Michael Schmitz. You know what? You got it. It is a possibility. Me personally, I would probably even consider Nolan Smith or Brian Brzee at this spot. I really would. I know the Giants fans want a receiver or a corner, but center and defensive line are what really makes a team tick offensive and defensive line. The trenches are what really makes a team tick, and the Giants got to get better in both areas. Leonard Williams not only getting older, but contract coming up. Dexter Lawrence, obviously hope to keep around, but contract coming up. And then the interior offensive line is just a disaster. No way around that. No way around it. So Giants go ahead and take a center first. I don't know that it will be at this spot. I think they would do it more in round 2, but I'm going to play around with the scenario when a lot of the corners are already off the board and Brian Branch is off the board and the receivers are flying off the board. We're just going to opt to wait on those, which I don't know what's going to happen. And I know Bijan's still available. I said I was going to have him go in the teens, and it didn't happen. And I don't know what to tell you on that. It's just I couldn't make it fit in this particular 2-round mock draft. But there's no way Bijan gets out of the first round. There's no way. And I've mocked him to Cowboys a lot. They cut Zeke. They brought back Tony Pollard. I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off. Bijan Robinson. Got a Texas hoodie on, of course. Big Bijan fan. People always ask me, how am I a Texas fan? And also the Giants. Well, born and raised in New Jersey. Family Giants fan. But also, I have a huge amount of my family that moved to Texas in like the 60s or the 70s. And a lot of them went there. And I was just a Texas fan from early because of my family. So that's the story with that. Not really much of a story, but that's why. Which, Bijan's kind of projected to go, maybe the Cowboys get him, maybe the Eagles. I don't want any of those, but here he is at 26, just a top 5 player in the draft available at 26. It is what it is. 27, got the Buffalo Bills. Man, still some really talented edge rushers on the board. They could potentially go with a safety still. Interior offensive line, certainly a need for them in my opinion. And I'll tell you what. It's really tempting to grab an edge rusher here. It's really tempting. I know linebacker is also a need. I totally get that. It could be the first linebacker off the board here, Jack Campbell. The connection there is very easy to make. Jack Campbell is 6'5", 250, and you go, Tremaine Edmonds? Not necessarily, obviously, but there are some similarities. He's also a great athlete. I mean, I know it's probably a little bit earlier than you're used to seeing him go. But that's the NFL draft for you. I'm going Jack Campbell out of Iowa to the Buffalo Bills at 27, first linebacker off the board. Bengals at 28. You went out and you got a tackle. Maybe you don't need one anymore. Maybe you can just go tight end. There's some awesome tight ends on the board. Michael Mayer just sitting there at 28. That's the pick for me. Saints at 29. I really just want to go edge here. I really want to go edge. And I'm going to. I feel like this is just a case of a player too good to be available. I think Nolan Smith, just like Bijan Robinson, probably goes a little bit higher than this. He's too good of an athlete. And you look at Marcus Davenport leaving in free agency to head to Minnesota, if I remember correctly. Like Peyton Turner's a question mark. Cam Jordan's getting older. You need edge. I know receiver. I know interior defensive line. I get it. Nolan Smith is available. So that's just kind of who I'm going with. Eagles at 30. I've talked about, defensive line and offensive line for them. Receiver, certainly a possibility. Hey, I'll tell you what. Who did I mock them? I think I might have given them John Michael Schmidt's last mock draft, and I got criticized for that because they took a center in the previous draft in the second round. Even though they've worked him out at guard already, and he could definitely end up playing guard, but you get more of a true guard here on the board, available at 30. I'm going to go Osiris Torrance. That is a potential plug-and-play starter at right guard. What did the Eagles lose in free agency? A right guard. What does Osiris Torrance play? Osiris Torrance plays right guard. Did so at Louisiana Lafayette. Did so at Florida. It makes way too much sense here at 30, and that is more power to their offensive line that, as a Giants fan, I would not like to see. And then at number 31, I actually kind of like the way the board has fallen. I feel like a lot of these players that are available, I think are going to end up being second-round picks. And I know that seems crazy with Myles Murphy being mocked so high all the time. He's a great athlete, no question about that, but was not quite as dominant in 2022 as you would have liked, unfortunately. And he had a lot of talent around him too. So if he can't win in one-on-one situations at the college level, what is that going to say at the pro level? But he's a great athlete. I really liked him in 2021, to be honest. I just don't know what was going on in 2022. He just wasn't quite the same player, in my opinion. But he's still very good. A lot of upside. Will McDonald's here too. I think it's an edge with the way the board has fallen. I like BJ Ojulari a lot. Really do. I'm going to go Myles Murphy. He's got more prototypical defensive end size as opposed to Will McDonald. I do think bulked up a little bit. I can't remember what he weighed in at the combine, but I think it was definitely above 240 pounds. No, maybe not. Still listed here, combine 239. I think it was Will Anderson who bulked up from like 240 something to 253. Not super relevant, but Murphy has more traditional size. He's 260, maybe even more than that now. And I feel like that's a pretty good way to end the first round if you were the Kansas City Chiefs. Steelers back up, pick number 32, of course. The forfeited Dolphins pick gives us only 31 first rounders this year. So it is pick 32, but no fifth-year option, unfortunately, for the Steelers. I think interior defensive line is kind of a sneaky need for them with their aging players. So that still could be in play. We took a tackle at 17. I've talked a lot about corner, and there's some great corners still available. And I feel like with the way the Steelers have historically played, it is like the physical press man corners, and we got a lot of them. Cam Smith, Tyreek Stevenson, maybe even Julius Brents, just because of his size. Julius Brents is huge, 6'4", 200 pounds, long arms. I know they list him at 6'3". I thought he was closer to 6'4". DJ Turner is a fantastic athlete. Ringo, I could see being a Steeler all day. You got great corners here. The reason I'm not talking about Emmanuel Forbes at this spot, great zone corner, great athlete, pick six machine. He's only 165, 170 pounds. So I think some teams could be a little bit scared of that, but I do think the player is phenomenal. So I do think he's great. I just don't know that he's a fantastic fit for the Steelers. I like Cam Smith here, Tyreek Stevenson a bit more. I'm going to go Cam Smith, which I think is like a fine pick at 32 for a team that needed to add a tackle and needed to add a corner. I think you probably found two starters the way it looks right now with your first couple of picks, which is not bad. Texans at 33. We took quarterback at 2, took receiver at 12, and you needed to add a great defensive player, and you still got some good ones available. Now, center could be the outside shot here. Like Joe Tippmann, I think, would be an awesome pickup for them. The Texans, they have multiple second-round picks. They do not, as far as I can tell. So if you want a center, you'll take one now probably, or wait and potentially miss out on Joe Tippmann and Luke Whippler, and maybe even Juice Scruggs is gone, although I think he could be available. I don't know. I feel like center is kind of one of those positions that you should take at this point. I know the defensive line that's still available on the board is very, very good. Definitely in play. I'm going to go center, though. I'm going to go with Joe Tippmann from Wisconsin. Another really good athlete, good size for the position. Kind of looks more like a guard in terms of his size to me. He is 6'6", 315, just about. He's a big dude. You know, you'll see the centers get a little bit smaller, but, you know, the draft nowadays has been churning out some big ones, so it's not too important. Cardinals at 34. For me, it's best player available. This is not a great team. Took Will Anderson at 3. Pretty much going to stick to best player available here. And, I mean, you did lose Byron Murphy. Could go corner. Could go corner. It seems like that's always a need for the Cardinals, and they just haven't quite figured that out. Let's go Emmanuel Forbes from Mississippi State. I think that's a nice pick for them. Colts at 35. I think I'm probably going to go corner here as well. We went Anthony Richardson at 4, and it just feels like such a Colts Chris Ballard pick. Julius Brents at 35. I've been seeing him go higher and higher, and I like it. He's got, again, excellent length for the position. It's a great cornerback class. Tough to differentiate them in the same way that it's tough to differentiate the receivers, even though the receiver class isn't quite as strong as the cornerback class, in my opinion. Julius Brents is very good. Great at the Senior Bowl as well. I think he's going to end up going a little bit higher than what we may have seen in recent mock drafts. We'll have to see, though. And I think that would have been a good pick for the Rams as well. Their offensive line, though, is so poor. And we could go tackle. Could go interior offensive line. Those guys are kind of flying off the board. Let's take a hybrid. Let's go with Cody Mauch from North Dakota State. Has played tackle for them. Often heard that he's maybe a better guard. I know he took guard and center reps at the Senior Bowl, if I remember correctly. So they're trying him all over. But Mauch is a really good athlete, and I think is going to be a round 2 pick. Then we're back to the Seahawks already. We took an edge rusher at 20, but a big one. We took an interior defensive lineman in Jalen Carter at 5, another big one. Could go offensive line here. Could go receiver. Kind of like Cedric Tillman for them, to be honest here. Definitely in play. I know the speed of Jalen Hyatt is just still on the board. What do we want to do here for Seattle? Maybe just Steve Avila? I think I'm just going to do Steve Avila. Potential plug-and-play starter on the offensive line. Had looked really, really good for TCU. Is a guy that says he's comfortable playing all 5 offensive line spots. I think it's his experience at all of them. I think he said he played right tackle for TCU in his freshman year because of an injury or a sickness or something. I watched an interview with him. And that versatility is tough to come by. And he's just a really good guard. So, and some people see center as well. But I've seen him play left guard. He's been very good. So, potential plug-and-play starter. I've given them Osiris Torrance quite a bit. Avila a little bit better of a mover in space. So I think you might be a little bit more excited about this at 37 than Osiris Torrance at 20. Although receiver, I'm still looking at it. Just didn't see anyone that made sense to me there at 37 for Seattle. Although, we'll see what happens. At 38, got the Raiders. We went with corner at 7 in Devin Witherspoon. Still have needs on both sides of the ball, obviously. Tackle stands out to me as a big need. Although some people think tackle's fine, and they'd be better served taking an interior offensive lineman. So, you know, it's kind of all over the place for Las Vegas at this point. What do we want to do? Mozzie Smith is there. I think I'm gonna go Mozzie Smith. Brian Brzee continues to fall. I still am very high on Brian Brzee. But Mozzie Smith, Space Eater, but great athlete on the interior of the defensive line. Not the first time the Raiders have landed a Michigan interior. Remember Maurice Hurst? He did not go this high due to health concerns. Panthers at 39 for the first time in this mock draft following their big trade up to number 1 for CJ Stroud in this mock. So what do we want to do? We could pair him up with a receiver. You look at their receiver room, they lose DJ Moore. Are we trying to replace him with a number 1? I'm not sure who's available at this point if you want to do that. However, what you could do is look to add a ton of speed. It's going to be Jalen Hyatt for me. You have Terrace Marshall there. Doesn't really satisfy that requirement. You have, Shi Smith potentially in the slot. Jalen Hyatt, big time speed. And even those who are not super high on Jalen Hyatt, just having the speed is super valuable. It lets those guys eat underneath because the spacing of the defense, they have to respect that speed. That's what, part of what made John Brown so valuable for all those years as a receiver. He wasn't putting up amazing numbers, but was so valuable because of what he made the defense do. And I know he wasn't even like the top speed guy that I can think of, but Jalen Hyatt has immense speed. I know he didn't run crazy fast, but plays like the fastest player in the world. So he definitely could end up being a top pick, way higher than this. Goes at 39. Saints at 40. We went with Edge at 29. I know that's going to be a little bit weird to some of you, but I think it makes sense. And then Brian Brzee available at 40. You need interior defensive line. Brzee's just there. So maybe you go into this draft thinking we're going to get help on the interior. We're going to take a receiver. Just didn't end up working out that way. We got 2 big pieces on the defensive line, 1 on the interior, and then 1, of course, a lot of burst off the edge. I think that'd be a pretty good draft for New Orleans, even if you probably want a receiver at some point. Best player available is sometimes just the best way to draft. And the Saints got a couple of studs here. Could kind of be like when they got Ryan Ramczyk and Alvin Kamara and Marcus Williams all in the same draft. And I think there actually might be another one I'm missing out on. Was Michael Thomas in that draft? Tough to remember, but Ramczyk, Kamara, and I think Marcus Williams all for sure were. They've had some great drafts. This could be, shaping up to be another fantastic draft for New Orleans. Tennessee at 41. We took Peter Skoronski at 11. They need receiver badly. And there are some really awesome ones still available. It'd be tough to pass on Josh Downs at this point for me because he's everything you wanted Robert Woods to be, but he actually could be that for Tennessee. Awesome slot receiver. I don't know that he's necessarily slot only, although his size would say so and his ability to beat press would say so. He plays pretty well above the rim, if you want to use that terminology. His contested catch rate, very, very high. Some of those are just working back to the football. I'm not sure if he's going to have the exact same contested catch win rate at the pro level, but he's got great hands. He's got great ability to go up and get it at times. So I like that, and I like the fit for Tennessee. Jets, back-to-back picks, 42 and 43. You took a tackle at 13. I think one of these picks will be an interior offensive lineman. The centers are going off the board. It's got to be Luke Whippler at this point for me. The offensive line continues to need to be revamped. Luke Whippler, starting center, is awesome. You could go edge here. Potential need for the Jets with some health question marks and also contract question marks. I think I am going to go off-ball linebacker, though. Has also continued to be a need. Now, you got some really awesome ones available. Drew Sanders, more of the edge off-ball linebacker. Trenton Simpson, more of like the explosive athlete linebacker that can play Mike. And then Deion Henley's more of like the safety linebacker. So you kind of got like different flavor here depending on what you want to do. Now, they have a lot of like safety linebackers on the roster. I'd prefer to go a different direction. I'm going to go Trenton Simpson. And I feel like that's a pretty good haul for the Jets with their top 50 picks. At 44, got the Atlanta Falcons. Some of these great edge rushers are just sticking on the board. Onyedika Uzomah is someone I like a lot. Will McDonald I like a lot. I think Adebawore is probably a defensive tackle. A lot of people love Tuli Tuipulotu. A lot of these tight ends are still available too. Not going to do that for Atlanta, of course. I'm going to go edge. And Will McDonald's just kind of sitting there. So, explosive athlete off the edge. His production wasn't great this past season. Was predominantly playing 4-eye for them. which for those who don't know, yeah, it's an edge rusher, but it's not really firing off the edge, getting a runway to actually get after the QB. It's kind of being in like a, a 3 or 4 point stance, like in between the guard and the tackle. It's not really a monster position to go rack up sacks off the edge to utilize your speed, which Will McDonald has a lot of. 45, got the Green Bay Packers. Wouldn't say quarterbacks in need. We have Jordan Love. Took a tight end at number 15 in Dalton Kincaid. Is this finally a receiver? I think they could go DB as well. I think they could go tackle, to be honest. I think they could go tackle. Could go edge. I mean, that's classic Packers. You really do have options here if you were Green Bay. Like Michael Wilson a lot. Cedric Tillman. I mean, they have really good options. I love Tyler Scott, but I could go Tyler Scott, actually. Nathaniel Dell, Tank Dell. Really awesome separator from the slot. I think he could be a good return man as well, although didn't do it much this past year. Did it a couple years ago. There's some fun receivers in this class. Now, if you like Christian Watson as your dynamic speed threat on the outside, Romeo Doubs could also be a potential starting outside receiver. You could just go slot. Now, I feel like it's a little early for Tank Dell, but I do like Tyler Scott at this point. I don't know. A lot of options here if you're Green Bay. I think they probably would just go tackle or edge because that's just what they do. I don't know. A lot of different ways the Packers could go with this pick. I would love to just see them get more weapons for Jordan Love, though. It's not Aaron Rodgers anymore. A.T. Perry is also very interesting. Let's actually give them A.T. Perry. Really big body, moves really well for somebody so big, ran well as well. Great route runner for his size, great ability to go up and get it. A.T. Perry, I think, could end up being a top 50 pick pretty easily. And you add the size component that they are really currently lacking in Green Bay. I know Christian Watson's big, but he's not the same type of receiver that A.T. Perry is. He's really more the speed threat, in my opinion, the deep threat. At 46, got the New England Patriots. Now, we avoided running back at number 14, even though they're supposedly trying to add one. The running backs are still available, and they might not be in real life, but they've lasted here. And Jahmyr Gibbs offers you the receiving ability that historically the Patriots have really coveted from their running backs. Now, they haven't always had to take them with high picks, but Jahmyr Gibbs here in the top 50 could go higher than this by a lot. Tremendously fast. Great hands. I think led Alabama in receiving yards this past season. To get him at 46 here for a team that's supposedly looking to get a running back, pretty good. Now, we took a corner at 16 for the Commanders. We got to address the interior of their offensive line, and it's starting to thin out a little bit. Now, there are some good ones. I think Ricky Stromberg could end up being a starting center, but someone that everybody loves recently is Chandler Zavala, and he's a people mover, and he moves well. So Zavala probably going to end up being a round 2 or at least day 2 pick. So potential starting guard there for the Commanders at 47. Lions at 48. Lions have had a good draft up to this point, in my opinion. Got Joey Porter Jr., got Tyree Wilson. We're upgrading that defense. Linebacker, still a position of need, in my opinion, even though they're not listing it here. We could look to go receiver, although I don't think we have to. And with the great linebackers still here, I think getting someone like Deion Henley, who can move so well in space, has sideline-to-sideline range, it offers you a really fun, like, chess piece on defense, the same way we talk about with Trenton Simpson. Somebody that you can move around, has the ability to stick and play in coverage, but is also a heat-seeking missile towards the ball carrier in run defense. So Henley is probably going to be one of the first linebackers off the board. You know, I took Trenton Simpson ahead of him. Obviously, Jack Campbell went early in this one just because it was such a great fit for Buffalo. Henley here at 48. You've gone out and you've potentially solved a lot of issues on defense in this draft. Receiver, you know, you could do that later. You don't have to reach on any of these current players. Now, I'm going to have a team take one of them pretty soon, probably. But go out and grab Dion Henley. I think you're going to be pretty happy with the results. And the tight ends are lasting. They got to start flying off the board. I think Tampa is going to be a spot for one. But Steelers here at 49. Now, what we could do is just go Drew Sanders. But I like the idea of at least looking on the interior of the defensive line. And I like Keanu Benton here for Pittsburgh. He's a nose tackle with pass rush upside. Really, really looked great at the Senior Bowl, showcasing a ton of tools as a pass rusher. And for Pittsburgh, you got some aging interior defensive linemen. Keanu Benton is at the very least an insurance policy on those guys. Bucks at 50. I'm just going to go DeJuan Jones. We're going to move Tristan Wirfs over to left tackle. You need another tackle. DeJuan Jones starts at right tackle, where he's more of a right tackle. He doesn't move that well, but he's so big. The right tackle is fine. Tristan Wirfs is the best right tackle in football. Yep, he's the best right tackle in football. Move him over to left side. He played it at Iowa. He's going to be fine. At 51, Dolphins making their first pick. They're not taking a tight end at this spot. They're not doing that. Probably would like to take a tackle. Might go Bergeron here. Maybe Tyler Steen. We're going to go Matthew Bergeron. They need tackle pretty badly, in my opinion at least. We go with Matthew Bergeron at 51. BJ Ojulari and Felix Anyudike-Uzama should be gone. I know. And the tight ends. I don't know what I'm doing, obviously. Things could change, but we got some great players still available. Like the Commanders, I guess, could have taken a tight end in theory. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, though. And I don't know if you're going to like it, but it turns out I don't care. I'm going to go Hendon Hooker at 52. The Seahawks get an insurance policy on Geno Smith. Geno's also on a 3-year contract. Hendon Hooker could be somebody that could be learning the offense. The thing is, he is a little bit older as a prospect, obviously. But at the same time, he's going to have to learn what an NFL offense looks like. So he's not ready to go. The Tennessee Josh Heupel offense is not an NFL offense at all. At all. With the super wide splits. So you're going to have to go ahead and completely relearn how to play the quarterback position from like a structural standpoint, I would say. The accuracy's there. The athleticism's there. You just got to learn what an NFL offense looks like and, potentially taking snaps under center. I mean, you look at Tennessee, it's Hendon Hooker stands in the pocket, catches the ball, and that's all I have to say before the ball comes out. He doesn't move, doesn't have to. The offense doesn't function like that. It's very bizarre. But NFL teams really seem to like him. I couldn't get him into the first round, as people are saying. I don't really like Minnesota for that. But he ends up falling here to 52. Maybe it's a bit late for him. We'll have to see what happens on draft night here in a few weeks, which it's coming up. It is coming up. Bears at 53. Went with a tackle in Paris Johnson Jr. at 9. What do we want to do at 53? A lot of options. I think it's just edge. I think it's just BJ Ojulari. And I really like Felix Anyudike-Uzama. I don't mean to keep leaving him out there. And I love Adetomiwa Adebawore. I don't know what to do to get them off the board right now. BJ Ojulari is the guy. I think he was the best edge available. And he is the pick there at 53. At 54, had the Chargers going with a speed threat earlier in Zay Flowers. The fact that the tight ends are still available for them, oh man, they got to be so stoked about it. They're just lasting. I mean, Darnell Washington go middle of the first round. Like, that's a real possibility, and he's just lasting. I'm not sure if I'm having some type of bias of looking at the PFF average draft position and big board, but it is a potential. These guys could fall because it's such a good tight end class. I'm going to go Luke Musgrave. Really great athlete. Adds even more speed to their offense. That is the pick. Lions at 55. This could be a tight end, to be honest. I might go 3 tight ends in a row. It's a possibility. Although I think they do like their tight end room, but I'll tell you what. Darnell Washington as basically another offensive lineman that you can develop as a receiver, who's already a pretty good receiver, by the way, but as an offensive lineman, essentially, Darnell Washington's a freak. I think he'd be a great add to this team that is really going to want to establish the run with David Montgomery's addition. Your offensive line's good. Add another big piece in Darnell Washington. And I said maybe I would do 3 in a row here. We'll see. We'll see. So we had the Jags go Brian Branch earlier. I would say edge is a need. I think tackle's still a need. But I'm not sure who I love here. Maybe Tyler Steen's the guy. Tough to say. Any edge rushers? Is this finally the Felix Anudike-Uzomah spot? Atabare as well. Get some guys who are like inside, outside flexible, I would say. More Atabare at D-tackle than Uzomah, clearly. But, I mean, Derek Hall could go here. Man, there's so many good edge rushers in this class. Got to start getting them off the board, plain and simple. This is an edge spot at this point for me. Have to. I mean, Tui Pulotu's good. What do we do? I'm going to go on Anudike-Uzomah at 56. Need a better pass rush. He helps. That's the argument there. The Giants at 57. Man, I know. Add a receiver. We didn't do it at 25. Went with a center, which people are going to hate, is what it is. Is the value there here at 57? Maybe Cedric Tillman. You can't add another like slot guy. You can't. Michael Wilson, if he stayed healthy. Tyler Scott has a ton of speed, probably a slot guy. I'm going to ignore the position again. I don't know what the Giants are going to do about receiver. They signed 1 billion of them. You have Paris Campbell for a year. You have Jamison Crowder. Isaiah Hodgins looked good last year. You're getting Wan'Dale Robinson back, healthy, hopefully. You have so many, like, receiver. Darius Slayton signed back. You have so many receiver by committee type players. Do you want to add another one if you can't get, like, a true number one? I don't know. They're in a weird spot with that position. They might just wait to 2024. I don't know. I'm going to ignore receiver. And linebacker would be in play, in my opinion. Right, if I could find it. Drew Sanders. I cannot pass on Drew Sanders at this spot. And I know, like, DJ Turner's here who's going to go higher. Drew Sanders is just such an awesome fit in the Giants defense. It is a perfect fit. I can't even explain to you how much. He is a hybrid linebacker / edge. Had a lot of success at Arkansas as a Mike this past season. Is a great blitzer. And what does Wink Martindale love to do? Send his linebackers on blitzes, especially up the middle. Drew Sanders is a perfect fit. You could sell me on this at 25. The fact that he's available now at 57, I know we need a receiver, we need a corner. I get it. I totally do. Drew Sanders at 57, I couldn't pass on. Bijan Robinson was the pick at 26, right? Cowboys on the board at 58. Do I just go receiver here? Tight ends, man, lost Dalton Schultz. Could go with a tight end for sure. I'm gonna go Sam Laporta. Sam Laporta is really good. Really good. Apparently forced over 20 missed tackles this past season as a tight end at Iowa. Really high number. Great actual stats as well if you're into that. Great production. Sam Laporta. I know like you like the Cowboys tight end group with Jake Ferguson and Peyton Hendershot. Like, that's fine. Sam Laporta is probably better than both of them. And, man, the DBs are still here. I'm going to go Antonio Johnson. I was really thinking edge for this pick with Buffalo, but Antonio Johnson's here, and you need a safety. I know you brought Jordan Poyer back. Micah Hyde's a long-term question mark. Antonio Johnson's a future starter and has experience in the nickel. Really good player. Bengals at 60. Where do we go? Michael Mayer went with a tight end. Interior defensive line's a big need. I might just go Atabare here, though. Jervon Dexter, maybe. I'm going to go Atabare because he is a potential defensive tackle. He's 282 pounds. So if you like Kalijah Kancey, not that Atabare is quite the same level as a pass rusher, but is maybe the biggest freak athlete in this entire class. Ran in the 4.4s. Does that even sound real? 282 ran in the 4.4s. Stupid. But Yeah, I would say plug this in for defensive interior, IDL. Atatomiwa Atabare is probably a defensive tackle. And even, let's say you bulk him up and lose some of the athleticism. Let's say he still has the explosiveness at 290 plus to run in the 4.5s or the 4.6s or the 4.7s at 300. You're not going to bulk him up 20 pounds probably, but you get the point. The guy's a freak athlete, could put on some weight and be a full-time interior defensive lineman. He is a freak. Bears at 61. This is their second pick in the... No, because they gave it to Pittsburgh. Why did I think... No, yeah, we did. We took B.J. Ojolari. We went edge and tackle. Could still go defensive line. Could go running back, though. I think I'm going to go running back. Who would pair nicely with Khalil Herbert at this spot? Go Zach Charbonnet. He's got receiving ability out of the backfield, too. Big running back. Good athlete. Maybe nothing exceptional. Zach Charbonnet to combat the loss of David Montgomery. Eagles at 62. I think we'll go with a receiver here. You have A.J. Brown. You have Devontae Smith. Let's give him Tank Dell. Slot receiver. Probably where he's going to play. And adds another dynamic element to this Philadelphia offense. And then to wrap things up, got the Kansas City Chiefs at 63. Took an edge rusher with that first pick. And here they are again. Let's go receiver. Got some good ones still available. When you look at their receiving room, they lost Juju, right? There's been suspicion that they're going to go out and get DeAndre Hopkins. Who knows about that? Cedric Tillman's still available. I really do like Tyler Scott a lot. I'm going to go Cedric Tillman with this pick, though. Get a big-bodied receiver for Patrick Mahomes. They never really have enough. And, yeah, they have Kadarius Toney, slot. They have Sky Moore, slot. Guess who's not a slot receiver at all is Cedric Tillman. Maybe you could play him there as a big slot, but that is an outside body. And I think a pretty good way to end this draft. It got a little bit crazy, but that's how I wanted it to be. You know, I don't agree with all these picks myself, but they are things that could happen. And that is going to do it for this mock draft. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed already, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.